So there's this great quote. It was actually by me, right? And it goes, an inconsistent action is a consistent answer. Let me say that one more time. An inconsistent action is a consistent answer. And the answer is, he ain't serious about you, or he's not worth your time. Now, slow down because though that can be true, and in many cases it is, we don't want to just jump to that conclusion. We have to understand that sometimes there are other things going on as to why a man is being inconsistent. Now, this is in no way saying it's okay for a man to be inconsistent. I believe any man who is serious about being with a woman needs to be intentional, needs to be consistent with the right actions and the right words and everything that goes along with it. But as a coach who sat down with tons of men and women who has gotten to see behind the scenes of a lot of situations, I know that inconsistency on the surface isn't always what it seems to be. So as a woman, I want you to be aware of how to navigate dealing with an inconsistent man, because the reality, the unfortunate reality, is that many of you are dealing with that, or have dealt with that, or will deal with that. All right. And some could argue that social media and the world of technology today has contributed to even more inconsistencies of men not being as focused and as intentional with the dating process. That's a different discussion. But the fact remains that there is inconsistency, and it's frustrating for you as a woman. It's annoying for you, and it makes you feel like it's just a waste of your time. But don't jump to that. Let's break this thing down, okay? So if you are dating or dealing with a man and he is being inconsistent, one of the things you should do, one of the very first things you should do, is just have a very honest, calm, and loving, loving conversation with the man, all right? Now, some of y'all just rolled your eyes. Don't roll your eyes. Don't suck your teeth. Hear me out. Understand that, like I said, sometimes inconsistencies or what seems to be two people not being on the same page are just misunderstandings, are breakdowns in communication, are just there's something behind it that is fixable, okay? But we can't discover if it's fixable or not unless we're willing to have a conversation. Now, the assumption by many women is, he's a grown man. Why should I have to talk to him about being inconsistent? Does he not know he's being inconsistent? Well, believe it or not always. Because he may not understand what you require or what you deem as the consistency that you need to see from him. So to give one example, let's just say taking you out on a date, all right? And he's not being consistent with initiating going out and hanging out. He might be down. If you say, hey, what are you doing today? Can I come over? He's open for it, but he's not the one creating opportunities. And you feel like, this man must not be serious. But one, we don't know if he's dealt with other women who require differently than you. And because they require differently, he doesn't understand what your standard is and what you're expecting. He may be like, all right, I don't want to do too much. I'm trying to play it cool. Like there could be other reasons as to what is going on here. So just having a conversation can clear that whole thing up if it is simply a misunderstanding. But notice I said have a calm, loving conversation. I can keep laughing when I say loving, because I know some of y'all don't realize that in those conversations, you may be coming off with a little bit of an attitude, with projecting a little bit of negativity, right? Because in your mind, you're already thinking he's just on some nonsense. He's just playing games, or you're concerned with that. And so you're coming in defensive rather than with that peaceful energy that says, I'm just trying to gain clarity here so that we can understand how to move forward. And it's important you do that because remember, it's not what you say, but how you say it. And if you come at somebody the wrong way, that in itself can throw off the conversation. That in itself can now send things left, and now we're having a conflict for some other reason, and we're not even getting to address what the real issue was here, okay? So we want to make sure we're having healthy conversations, and we're going into it with the mindset of, I'm trying to understand you rather than projecting onto them what this might be, all right? Allow him to explain, allow him to answer, and make sure you don't leave that conversation without expressing what you require from that man, what you need to see from him. Now, I know some women feel like, or have been told, don't tell a man what you're looking for, because then he'll just follow the blueprint, so to speak, to basically play you and take advantage of you. Now, I'm not going to say that's never happened. What I will tell you is the majority of men who just want to play you are not interested in following your entire blueprint, all right? The guy who wants to use you is looking to do less for more. So he may do one or two things or a few things on that list, but he's not going to be the guy who turns into Mr. Consistent, doing everything that you're looking for just for the purpose of playing you, especially in today's age where, again, people are so much more easily distracted. People feel like, oh, I could get someone else to do twice what you're doing and not even have to put up forth the same effort. So if he starts to do everything you ask, there's a very good chance it's because he actually likes you and is actually genuine about putting forth his best effort now that he has an understanding of what it is you need from him. All right, so now you're having that loving conversation. I just kind of mentioned it, but let's dive more into it. The next thing I want you to do, if you're dealing with a man who is inconsistent, is make sure he understands what you need and he's truly willing to embrace it, all right? So what I'm saying is, as I mentioned the last point, you don't want the conversation to end without there being clarity as to what your standard, what your requirements are moving forward, all right? So for example, if you're dealing with a man and you feel like his communication is inconsistent, you don't want to leave that conversation with a vague request of, I want to hear from you more. Because if, let's just say, he's been calling you every few days, right? And let's say that amounts to 3 times a week, okay? And what you really want, what you really feel like what he needs to show you for you to feel good and secure about where you are and how this thing is progressing, you want daily communication. That is the standard. That is what you feel that's what you feel is what needs to happen for two people to build a healthy relationship, right? You want to be specific about that, because if you just say, I need to hear from you more, okay, well, he may go from 3 times a week to 5 times a week, okay? And in his eyes, I'm improving. I'm doing better. You asked to hear from me more, I'm hitting you up more. But you're still feeling frustrated, or you're still feeling like he's not showing you that he's serious, because in your mind, you want daily, okay? And so I think it's important that you express that. Hey, listen, if you want to continue to move forward with me, I need to hear from you daily. That's what I require, all right? And ask him, are you cool with that? Because there's a lot of men who, if they're honest, well, again, and the key is if they're honest, some aren't going to be honest. But if they're honest, they can't fulfill what you're requiring. But the great thing is, believe it or not, when you're very specific or direct with a man, there's a greater chance of him being able to clearly tell you if that works for him or not. Because I know of situations, I've coached clients where I've gotten the woman to be very clear about what it is she's looking for, what it is she requires. And there's been times where she expressed it and the guy was like, all right, cool, that works for me. I just wasn't sure. I didn't want to do too much. You know, I didn't want to be overbearing or come across as thirsty. So I was just trying to be cautious about how much I reached out to you. But now that I know you want to hear from me daily, I love that. I'm cool with that. Boom, they were good to go. In a different situation, The guy told her straight up, listen, I feel like with all I have going on in my life, in this specific example, he had a business he was trying to build, he had a kid, and he was a single father. And he was like, I can try, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to communicate as much as you want me to communicate. All right. And at that point, it's now for the woman to decide, do you really want to accept that or not? But you can get some men to be real with you about, nah, that's too much, or no, that's perfect. So you want to be very specific about what it is you require. When we ask for more quality time, what does that look like, right? When you say to a man, I feel like you're not making enough of an effort, what does that mean? Express yourself, explain, so that he has the clarity to understand how he needs to step up. Because now, I always say, the way to see how serious a man is about you is not in seeing what he does on his own. So basically, it's not in saying, okay, well, if he's serious, he would on his own call me every day, do this, do that, boom, boom, boom. No. It's in seeing how he handles your feelings, your requests, what you desire from him. That's what's going to really separate the real ones from the fake ones. Because again, in the vast majority of cases, the guy who's not serious is not going to be willing to make all the adjustments. He may verbally say, okay, cool, I hear you. I'll do better. But then you're going to see that he's not keeping up with that. The guy who is going to put forth that effort once he knows. Now, you want to make sure that when he's putting forth that effort, you recognize that. You show appreciation for that, because appreciation breeds production, all right? It lets someone knows, this is what I'm happy with. This is what I'm enjoying seeing this from you. And when a man sees this is speaking to the heart of the woman he cares about, he's going to want to use or implement it more in that relationship. All right. So ultimately, be specific, be clear, show appreciation when that effort is made, but understand that that's what's going to separate and show you who's really serious about you. All right. So another thing to mention, when a man is being inconsistent, what you should do, or technically what you should not do, is try to make him jealous or play games. All right. So let's paint the scenario. You have a woman, she's dating a man, and she feels like, again, she's hearing from him here and there. It's not as often as she would like. He's not initiating going out as much as she would like, right? But she wants this man's attention. She wants to keep dating this man. And rather than address the issue, rather than, see if these things can be corrected, she may have someone in her ear, or she may on her own, for her own reasons, decide, all right, I'm going to make him jealous. Okay. Or I'm going to start playing the game of, all right, well, now I'm not going to reach out to him. I'm just going to sit back and go no contact and see how he handles it. And this is a very unhealthy approach to addressing the issue. To me, if you're going to go that route, I'd rather you just cut the man off and walk away. Like, it's better to just end things than to start engaging in game playing, because so much can go wrong from here, and things can be made worse for you. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you now engage in trying to make him jealous or trying to ignore him to get him to react, and let's say he doesn't react the way that you were hoping he would. For some of you, that can reel you into now becoming consumed with this situation, to where now you are angry that he didn't react that way. Now you're hitting him up. It's like the tables get turned on you, okay? And now you find yourself, or you're not even realizing, you're basically chasing his validation because he didn't give it to you in that moment, and not realizing you're playing right into the hands of someone who isn't serious about you. Or you're playing right into the hands of someone being able to now take advantage of you. Or you start to become blinded by you seeking out his validation that you're not registering. He's just not the one for you. But now let's look at it from a different angle. Let's say he actually is that good guy that you just need to have a conversation with. He was serious about you, but he was mishandling the situation. Maybe he was getting bad advice, right? And now you go no contact. You say, I'm going to play this game of not reaching out to him. And all you've done is now reinforce his fears, his concerns. And now he falls back thinking you're not really interested, that maybe he's wasting his time. And so now you shoot yourself in the foot playing games rather than just walking away or just having a conversation. So ultimately, it doesn't serve you any good, because even if you get that man to react, here's one of the things that people don't understand about playing games like the ignoring and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you will get that person to react psychologically because maybe, for example, even if he's not serious about you, he's not hearing from you. So now he freaks out because he's like, okay, I don't want to lose my opportunity to hang out with this woman. Even if he's just trying to have fun with you, he may really want to experience that. So he reacts in the moment, calls you, tries to make things right. But we don't want people reacting out of fear or, out of manipulation of thinking that they're going to miss out. We want people to react because they understand this is what needs to be done to build a healthy relationship. And so you can't have that without having a healthy approach to situations and moments like these. So the tactics, the game playing, it's not that it doesn't get the reaction that people want sometimes, but that it overlooks the underlying issue and it doesn't set a healthy foundation. So be mindful of that. Do not play those games and do not do the whole try to make him jealous. Because again, I've also seen how that has backfired, the whole using another man to make the man jealous, and it blew up in some women's faces, all right? You don't want to introduce these unnecessary variables that can derail a potentially fixable situation. All right, so let's keep this going. And another thing you should do if the man you're dealing with is being inconsistent is to make sure you're being consistent yourself. Hear me out, okay? Hear me out. So I've heard a lot of different scenarios, and I'll have women come to me saying, why is it that you can meet a man and for the first, let's say 3 months, he's doing everything right. He's perfect. He's on point. He's putting forth all the effort, right? But then after the 3-month mark, he stops. He starts slacking off. Everything changes, goes in a completely different direction. And for a lot of women, the assumption right away is, well, he was just playing you, or maybe after you had sex with him, he now got what he wanted. And I'm not going to say that's never happened. Of course, that happens. But what I have to bring to their attention is sometimes his effort fell off or his inconsistency began because you weren't reciprocating his efforts. You see, because for a lot of women, and this may be you're dating with a wall up, all right? You're dating with the mentality of, he needs to show me enough proof that allows me to feel that he's serious enough for me to open up and give my heart to him and things of that nature. And I understand the mindset, but we have to recognize that a lot of that stems from the fact that you've probably been in situations before that you felt like you were hurt, or maybe you moved too fast, whatever the case may be, and someone took advantage of you. And so now, because you haven't fully released that and healed from that, you're projecting that, and you have this defense mechanism of a wait and see approach. I'm going to wait to see if he shows me enough, right? But you don't realize that in that process, you're holding back. You got your wall up and you're basically hiding behind your wall. And like I said in a different video, you got a wall up, you got snipers on the roof, you got landmines around the perimeter, right? And you are, for someone who has a wall up, the problem that you don't realize that is, one, there is no defined limit or defined line of when he has shown enough. It's almost like, okay, when you just feel comfortable. But so could that be 3 months, 5 months, 6 months? We don't know here. And he doesn't know. So if he's not getting what he needs from you in return, how can he feel comfortable and confident continuously pouring into you in that way and showing up if you're not showing up for him? All right? Because as a man, he has his own concerns. Is he being played? Are you using him? If you're not meeting him halfway, if you're not coming together on and making a mutual effort here, then there's reason for him to feel like, all right, you're the one playing games. Or you're the one not serious. You're the one that's not consistent, right? And so you have to be mindful of, am I showing up the way that I need to? Am I showing up the way that I require of him? Now understand, because some women will say, well, the man's supposed to pursue you. The man's supposed to chase you. Listen, no one's supposed to be chasing anyone. It's supposed to be two people running towards each other, making a mutual effort to build a healthy relationship, okay? And even if he is pursuing, as in he is the main driver of the situation, you still have to join in and put forth the proper, correct effort to allow him to continue to do what he needs to do. He's a human being. He has his own fears and concerns as well. So a lot of women don't realize that they've been holding back, and that's what kills the situation. So evaluate that. And if you are struggling with making that mutual effort or opening up in that way, do the inner work to understand, is this an issue of I need to heal? Or this is hitting my spirit, so I have to say this. For some of you, the reason why you're holding back is because you're not really interested in this man. Basically, what you have is these situations where a woman is giving this guy a try, saying, okay, he seems like a nice guy. He's been hitting me up forever, or he's been wanting to get with me. All right, let me just see what happens. And because you've never really been into him like that, you're just letting him make the efforts and drive the situation and do everything, but you don't really have the desire, the motivation to pour into him in that same way. And so when the smoke starts to clear for him, when that point comes where he realizes, dang, I'm doing all this stuff, but she's not really doing nothing for me, those start to fall off. And you'll feel like he switched up on you, he wasn't serious, when it was like, no, you just weren't essentially matching his energy. All right? So you have to be mindful of that before you start to, what's the word I'm looking for? Before we start to evaluate or fully try to understand his inconsistencies, you got to start with, or have you been consistent yourself? All right, so a few more to go. And another thing I want you to do when a man is being inconsistent, or when you're dealing with a man who's being inconsistent, and this is more specifically for those of you who are already in a relationship or maybe even married, is seek third-party assistance, okay? I think that sometimes we've reached a point where we need outside help to resolve the issue, because there might be a breakdown in communication. There may be some unresolved issues that we don't understand or know how to navigate that is getting in the way of both parties or one party showing up the way that they need to in this relationship. A lot of times people are not showing up the way that they need to because they're holding on to an issue that isn't properly being addressed. And therefore, if it can't be addressed, it can't be resolved. Okay? And by getting third-party assistance, counselor, coach, whatever, it can be easier for people to maybe open up and get everything out on the table and then see, can we fix this? Because that's the key. It's understanding whatever the issue is in a relationship. Is it a fixable issue, or is it a symptom of we don't belong together? All right? And we can't understand which one it is if we're not willing to have talks, or in this example, get help. And I think that sometimes, especially for those who are in relationships, I feel that some people think counseling is just for when you're married. And it's like, no. Even if you're in a relationship, if you're going to continue to be in a relationship with somebody, or you're trying to make a relationship work with somebody, be willing to go to counseling. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a great thing, because at the end of the day, I'd rather you find resolution. Whether that resolution be, we're going to fix this and we're good, or that resolution is, we don't belong together. It's time to end this. We just need resolution, because instead, what you'll have is people continuing on in these dating dynamics or relationships where they're constantly at conflict and there's no resolution to the situation. And that constant conflict now creates a more toxic and unhealthy environment. It then creates other issues. So you have people, they'll come to me sometimes and they're arguing about this current issue on the surface, but it really stems from this underlying issue that's been lingering the entire time. All right. So you may have a situation where, I don't know, the man has been constantly like not doing what he's supposed to do around the household, falling short, all these different things. And that's turned into the woman not wanting to be intimate with him anymore, or not having the same level of desire for him anymore. And so now he's complaining about that. But at the core of it, it's you haven't been doing your part in the household. Or we may even go deeper and find out his issue is he feels like she doesn't respect him. And because of that, he's been carrying this attitude around the house, and that's poured over into him not doing what he's supposed to do all the time. And this is not me giving excuses. This is me explaining real life situations and scenarios that pour over into other aspects of the relationship. So all that to say, granted, I know there's this idea of, well, if they're inconsistent, they should know they're not doing their part. But we have to understand why. And if we're in a relationship or in a marriage, that why may not come out unless we get someone to help us with navigating this situation. So be willing to get that third-party assistance when you've already exhausted your other options. All right, so we're almost at the end of this. And another thing for you to do when a man you're dealing with is being inconsistent is set a deadline and be prepared to walk away. So I mentioned earlier, like, I'd rather you walk away than play games. I also mentioned earlier that sometimes these issues are a symptom of you're dealing with the wrong man and he's not for you. And I think as a woman, what you have to be prepared to face and accept that reality. Because for a lot of women, the reason why they don't address the inconsistencies of the man they're dealing with is because they're afraid of the ultimate outcome, which is he's not going to do any better because he's not the one for them and she needs to leave him. And if she doesn't want to have to leave him, she'd rather sweep it under the rug. She'd rather not have to have that conversation that will only give her more reason to have to face the reality that he's the wrong man for her. Instead, it's easier just to try to suck it up and keep dealing with it, all right? But in doing that, you're not happy. It's like you're trying to avoid this one unwanted outcome, but you're sacrificing your peace, your happiness, your sanity in the meantime. You know, you have some people who are so afraid to be alone, so instead they just, again, deal with it. And that's not good for you. It's not good for, if there is a chance that this could be fixed, you're not giving yourself that opportunity. It's like in trying to address this, yes, as I've said multiple times, this can go one of two ways. Addressing it means we're either going to be able to fix it or we're going to recognize this is done. And we got to be okay with that, because one of those outcomes will still both of those outcomes lead you to better. What I mean by that is this. If it can get fixed, all right, then we have a better relationship. If it can't get fixed and we have to walk away, well, that will allow you to be available to receive a better relationship. Either way, you win. Now, it may not feel like a win in the moment if you have to walk away. It may be very disappointing because you want so badly for this to work out. But you can't try to keep pulling the right things out of the wrong men. All right? And that's what so many women are attempting to do. And it's a futile battle. They're not going to win that battle. So you got to be willing to face the reality of the situation. And so the reason why I mentioned setting a deadline is because I think sometimes a woman can say, okay, I'm prepared to walk away. This can't work out. But because she has not given herself a structure, a deadline, some kind of line that has to be drawn that says, at this point, we end it, that moment of I'm prepared to leave him turns into she's still with him a year later. She's still with him 3 years later. A pregnancy occurs. She ends up marrying him. These things happen. These things happen because we didn't say to ourselves, you know what, if it reaches this point, or if I don't see change within this much time, I'm done. And I have to stick to that. And if sticking to that means you got to get yourself an accountability partner, do that. Because a lot of people sometimes don't tell other individuals their plan of, all right, if this doesn't work, I'm going to have to leave, because they don't want anyone to hold them accountable to it. They don't want anyone that's going to push them and be like, yo, why haven't you left yet? They want to be able to have their excuse to stay. And I understand it, but I pray that you're going to embrace the strength you have within you to do what is truly best for you, okay? So set that deadline, be prepared to walk away, and understand, you know, I've said it many times before, anytime someone can believe that no matter what they do, you will never leave them, you lost. That relationship is pretty much done for. What a person should believe is that as long as they are willing to put forth the right effort and show up, right, that you will be with them, that's fine. That's good. That's healthy. But not that they can just act a fool and do whatever and you're going to still stick around. That's not acceptable. And that will just lead to more disaster. All right, now last but not least, and if you know me, you probably know what's coming up next. If you're dealing with a man who's being inconsistent, what you need to do is talk to God. Again, if you know me, you already know. You got to talk to God. And the reason being is because it's very easy. Let's look at it from the angle of this is a good man who we're just not on the same page with right now. It's very easy to let your emotions get the best of you, to react, to maybe do or even say things that you don't mean that can end up causing problems in the relationship and derailing the whole thing. And so I always tell people, pray before you react. It's good to make sure you calm yourself. And in that moment of prayer, that might remind you to be like, all right, let me have a talk with him first. Let me do these other things that were mentioned in today's video before I just jump off the negative bridge of he ain't serious, he's playing games, whatever the case may be, I'm going to cut him off, you know? So praying and talking to God is going to help with us not overreacting or poorly reacting to the situation. But it's also talk to God because here's the reality. For some of you, we can maybe skip all these steps because God's already been telling you this man ain't for you. And there's no point in going through this whole process of trying to work things out if at the end of the day, he's not the guy for you. Now, here's the thing. Even if he's a man who, let's just say you skipped talking to God and you addressed him and he's now willing to be more consistent with his actions. Okay, that seems great on the surface. But if he's not the right guy for you, despite that, that will trick you into staying somewhere you don't belong. There are plenty of people who remained with a man, plenty of women who remained with a man who was willing to do the work, so to speak, but they still were the wrong person to work with. And it will show itself at some point down the line, but right now you get fooled into thinking, oh, okay, we're good now. No, he still needs to go. You still belong elsewhere. And you can only know and understand that if you're willing to go to God, get in tune with your spirit, and embrace what you're hearing. So it can save you a lot of the headache. It can save you a lot of wasted time, right? But again, it can also help guide you in how to navigate the situation when it is a fixable situation. And I think it's just good in general because so many people lose themselves in relationships because they stop putting God first and they stop allowing God to guide them in their life and instead start leaning on their own perspective and understanding of things. And that, even if it's getting you some good results right now, it's going to come a point where it's going to end up backfiring on you. So Always remember to talk to God, no matter what the circumstances are. Hell, even if you're dealing with a man who is consistent right now, who never was inconsistent, still talk to God. It's still the right way to do things so that you can ensure you're where you need to be, you're going about things the way that you need to go about things, and that you're setting yourself up to receive what is truly best for you. Hey, thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on why men stopped courting women. 5 big reasons. This used to be a common thing in the world that we once lived in, or before we were here, okay? And now